hearing.
Well, I wanted to, we ready? Ready to go? I just wanted to have an opportunity to talk a little bit about the Commission on Public Safety and the problem we're trying to address. As you know, our sentencing structure is an accretion of policies that were put in place by ballot measure, by legislative action over the course of many, many years. They don't have any internal consistency. They don't have much cohesion. And they often force us to use very expensive approaches to public safety rather than relying on some of our best, most effective practices that can both keep citizens safe but also hold criminals accountable for their actions. At this time when we are struggling with scarce resources and increased demand for public services, I think it's very important that we make sure that every state dollar is spent as effectively and efficiently as possible. We're already starting that process with health care and with education, and we think we need to look at our public safety system as well to make sure that each public safety dollar is getting us the best return on investment. This was created, this commission, by executive order some time ago. Today is their first meeting, and I think it's important to recognize that this overdue concept, is really the result of Governor Kulongoski. It was a part of his reset report, and we have certainly embraced it. We think this is extraordinarily important work. Oregon is at a very low point. I think it's a 40-year low point in criminal activity. It's part of a national trend. We're one of 44 states that have seen a significant reduction in crime between 2005 and 2009. The difference is that more than half of those states are actually seeing a reduction in their prison population. But Oregon is on track to add another 2,000 prison beds between now and 2020, and I think we need to take a serious look to see why that disconnect is going on in our state. You know, we're a state that's been recognized for our efforts to reduce recidivism, and we've been very enlightened, I think, in that area. So we need to, I think, have the wisdom and the courage to revisit our structures and see if they can be improved upon. We know that research shows that things like drug and alcohol treatment, parole and post-prison supervision, electronic monitoring are clearly the most effective and efficient ways to treat certain kinds of crimes. And I think we need to take a look to see whether our system is actually deploying those technologies when the science tells us that it's important to do that. So I want to thank everyone on this commission for their willingness to serve, the Chief Justice for his willingness to chair it, Governor Kulongoski for his willingness to serve as my designee on the commission, Senators Brzezinski and Winters, who are the designees of the Senate President, Representatives Olson and Garrett, who are the representatives of the co-speakers, and Dick Withnell, who apparently lacks the ability to say no to anything I ask him to do, is serving as the citizen representative on this committee. This is very, very important, and let me just say finally, before I ask the Chief Justice to come up, that one of the things in Governor Kulongoski's reset report was the clear pattern of disinvestment that's taking place in our state, where we're pulling money out of investments in children and families and education and spending more and more on our criminal justice system and social support systems and our healthcare system. So obviously we want to reverse that trend, and we want to make sure that our sentencing structure not only holds criminals accountable, but also takes steps to ensure that they don't get involved in criminal activity in the first place. I believe that this report will move us a long ways in that direction. Chief Justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Judges usually do not get involved in making policy, but I'm here at the invitation of both governors, and I'm very happy to be here with my legislative colleagues. As an appellate judge, I've spent over 20 years trying to interpret the very complex layers of our sentencing system. We've tried to be diligent in enforcing the letter of the law of those laws, and particularly keeping faith with the intent of the voters and the legislature. I think we can maintain the principles and the values that we've expressed to keep us safe, but that we can simplify our sentencing laws. I was involved in writing the Oregon sentencing guidelines a couple of decades ago. I think it's time that we put into law the experience and research we've gained, since we know now what can keep us safe. We can find better ways to keep Oregonians safe without building more and more prison beds. Other states have done it and are doing it now. Some people see this work as an attack on Measure 11 or some other law. I do not see it that way. This is work that needs to be done, as the governor said. It's being done in many other areas. This is the kind of work that needs to be done with public safety. It's what Oregonians expect us to do in all of government's activities. Get the job done as efficiently and effectively as possible. It's not enough to be tough. We can make ourselves more safe by being smart on sentencing. And so thank you very much, Governor.
Yes, sure. Thank you. Well, thank you, Governor, for this opportunity to be part of this distinguished group here to look at these issues. As a person representing the public and the private sector assigned with the task of examining public safety and sentence guidelines, I continue to be impressed by the dedication and efforts of so many people with our public safety system to work out better for all of our citizens to keep individuals and property safe. The point is, we are in very difficult times. Many believe that we are not as safe as we should be. However, the facts are that the Oregonians are safer now than they have been in the past 40 years. We just heard that upstairs. So we need to have a public understanding about safety for sure. The point is that we are in very difficult times, and we must find new innovative solutions to old problems. Need to apply cost-benefit analysis to all of the tools available, which would show real return on investment to public safety and to change the lives to be more productive. I hope to bring a point of view shared by our communities. Oregonians are counting on us to put partisan labels aside, roll up our sleeves, and solve problems. It is in this spirit of community services, and I am willing and enthusiastically engaged with our colleagues here to see if we can do the unexpected and succeed at defining new strategies which make sense to us and those we serve in Oregon. Oregon is the best place to live. Well, why is it? Because we live here, or else we wouldn't be living here, right? We just want to make it that much better, and we definitely have the opportunity to do that.
Go ahead. As the architect of the happy kid.
Governor Kitzhaber said everything that I would say, and I just want to go off on what Mr. Whitnell said. You know, this to me is a recognition that public safety, having the citizens safe in their homes and on the streets of their community, is a priority of government. It's the priority of this governor and of this legislature. I think what our challenge is not just doing the same thing over and over, but actually bringing to the public choices about more fiscally responsible ways that we can keep them safe. It remains the priority. I think that the public demands it. I think it is one of those objectives of government that we have a responsibility to do. It is just the question of giving more fiscally responsible alternatives to the public and saying, we can do this, keep you safe. We can make you safer, and at the same time be fiscally responsible in how we do it. That's what I hope at the end of this, and it will take some time because the governor has given us a deadline of December the 15th to come out with a report, which we will, to the governor, to be presented to the legislature probably in February, which will set out a framework of which we can move forward in this discussion with the public. This Chief Justice has committed to having an outreach program with Traveling Oregon. We intend to be in all the communities we can to have this dialogue with the public, to have them better understand some of the choices we think that they should be looking at to keep them safe in their homes and on the streets of their community.
I'm sure we'd be happy to answer any questions, individually or collectively, if you have any.
The commission just heard how the 1989 sentencing guidelines have been overlaid, to describe it mildly, with requirements put on by both initiative and legislative referrals approved by the voters. Given that complexity, how easy is it going to be to both untangle that, to create a more coherent sentencing system, and B, doing it in a time frame. You've asked for recommendations by December 15th. But
I'm an impatient man.
But yeah, might take a little longer than that to actually come up with something.
Well, I think, Peter, it's a very good question, and this commission is in the process, and we already started today to disaggregate and disentangle so that we understand what the relationship is between those policies that are linked to prison capacity and those sentencing policies that are not. And it'll be our job to make sure that we can convey to the public which policies are evidence-based and will keep our communities safer, and what the cost of those policies is. I see our commission working through this as best we can in the 4 months, then coming to the legislature with some recommendations and asking the legislature to then continue in other words, continue us in our work to put together a package of sentencing reform, very much like we did, and I was a part of this in 1989 when we did that with the sentencing guidelines. We can approach this in very much the same way. We can do our work in the 4 months. We can seek legislative approval to continue that work and then put together a truly comprehensive reform package as we go.
The politics of some of this can be really difficult, and even if you can demonstrate that it's a good policy, it still invites easy attacks on somebody who has to face an election. Is it realistic to do things that, even if the evidence supports it, might be easily construed as going soft on crime?
No.
I'll bail you out on this one. Well, you know, I think as Governor Kulongoski said, this is really about presenting some clarity about choices to Oregonians. You know, I don't think anybody who voted for Measure 11 voted to actually fund and operate 7 or 8 new prisons. And they certainly didn't fund to take that money out of the ability to educate their kids to put it into public safety. It's just that wasn't the choice that was framed in that ballot measure. In fact, as the governor that had to cite those prisons, I think that I couldn't find a single county where I was going to put a prison that actually claimed to have voted for the measure. So I think the issue here is to really lay out with a lot of clarity sort of what these policies are, which ones are actually based on best practices and can keep people safe, and then put the price tag up there. Because I think that without both sides of that equation, you can't have a cogent debate about public safety.
Wasn't some of the debate around Measure 73, was that the one that the mandatory minimums that passed in November? Wasn't there a lot of debate about the costs of that measure, and it still passed?
Yeah, there was a lot of debate about it. But once again, I think it was this is not a ballot measure we're proposing here. And jump in if I'm taking down the wrong road. But it seems to me what we're trying to do is present to the legislature, not in the frenzy of a political campaign, a series of choices based on best practices. At the end of the day, obviously this is going to have to pass political muster, but the reality is, and the truth is, and I think Oregonians need to hear the truth, that disinvesting in children and families and education, which results in kids dropping out of school, is a sure pathway into the criminal justice system. And so at some point you've got to balance prevention, primary and secondary prevention, with the back-end costs. And I think that's really the kind of debate we're trying to set up here in Oregon.
Is this commission totally focused on sentencing? I understand one of the other factors driving up the corrections costs is both health care, which affects every kind of program, plus the aging of the corrections population. Is commission going to be dealing with that, and to what extent can the state deal with that? If I hear coordinated care and flight to this, it's going to scratch my head a little bit. But.
Peter, I think certainly the commission will be looking at all those aspects, because a major cost driver, as you know, that we looked at the last legislative session in public safety was the issue of the aging population and the accelerated cost of health care. As you probably know, I think we looked at some $200 million of the healthcare cost in the DOC system. And in looking, out, that trajectory, if we do nothing, well, actually is competing with those child care dollars that the governor talks about and the educational dollars. So I, expect the commission to actually look at that, look at are we actually having the correct policy when we look at the aging out population? And we had some of that discussion today. I think all of it is a conversation that we need to have with the broader public as it looks at corrections. I submit that probably most citizens of our state do not know what's inside of our prison system. And do not know, it begs the question, if we had other ways of dealing with this population and still keep the community safe, would they rather have that alternative? And I think these are the kinds of questions that we're asking ourselves on this commission.
Would any possible changes in criminal sentencing guidelines, would those apply going forward, or do they apply retroactively to people already there? Is that on the table?
Of course, we don't give advisory opinions, but the easy answer to that is, of course, when it comes to sentencing has to be linked to the date that the crime was committed. So by virtue of that, of course, they have to be going forward. That's not to say that there might be some retroactive effects of things that could affect people already incarcerated, but I'm not able to comment about how that would work. But in terms of your general question, sentencing reform needs to be linked to the date the person is accused of committing the crime.
Thank you all so much.
Just to answer your question, you asked the difficulty. Can I tell you just one thing that this actually necessitates us to look at beliefs we have about our criminal justice system and be prepared, when you look at the facts, to look at it differently. And I'm going to give you an example this morning. I have always believed there is a direct relationship between unemployment and crime rate. And what we were shown this morning from data is that is not true. Now, there's some social reasons why that isn't true. There is a greater social safety net under unemployed people that actually it wasn't like it was years ago, where in fact that there was more of a connection. But where the connection is, which we tend to walk away from, it's around poverty. And when you have poverty, poor health, a lack of education, a lack of opportunity for people, you drive the crime rate. And I think what the governor said more than anything here today was that as a community, as a state, we have to invest in those things, be smart, and invest in those programs and those policies that actually will keep people from getting into crime. But we have to look at this, and all of us are going to probably, by the end of this period of time, are going to look and see the things that we have commonly believed for a long, long time are not actually correct. And that's what we want the public to be patient with us, listen to the debate, and let's go forward.
Thanks so much.